So teams have been formed. These are the teams. If you have teammates not here, reach out to them. They should be reaching out to you. Hopefully they watch the video or tune in. It was a random selection on what teammates you got. So if your teammates aren't here, I apologize about that for them, but welcome to life at school and in teams and in engineering. So believe it or not, engineers don't show up to work now and then. They call in sick or they go on vacation because they deserve a vacation, don't we all, right? So then you're left to carry the load, right? So if you are carrying the entire load, we don't want that. Reach out to me and I will intervene and help out. But, you know, if you're missing a teammate, that is kind of life. You still want to get things done. That's the gist of it, is you still need to get things done. So, but I would reach out if somebody's not here that's on your team. I would reach out to them. I can tell you that there is one student in Team 5, Rob Luster. He is doing this class online and I allowed him to do that. Okay. So Team 5, reach out to Rob. Rob's going to reach out to you. He'll do what he can to participate. He's been a great student so far. So I hope he kicks in, right? So we'll get that to happen. All right. So let's talk about the calendar a little bit, because some bunch of things have been popping in there. We have some guest speakers coming up. We have a guest speaker on Tuesday, going to take up the lecture time. So anytime I can get a guest speaker, I let them come and hog time. And anything that I got to deliver to you, then I'll just put online into a lecture format online, and I'll tell you it's there and that you got to watch it, and then go from there. Okay. So civil engineers coming on Tuesday. Now, for each guest speaker that comes, the day before the guest speaker comes, or actually anytime before the guest speaker comes, you've got to post up 2 reasonable questions for that guest speaker into Blackboard. So what I'm trying to get you to do is just think about who's coming. It's a civil engineer, and think about a question you might want to ask a civil engineer that's very kind of specific to civil engineering. If you don't know what civil engineering is, then you can look it up. I've talked about it a little bit in class, right? Or you can ask me like, hey, what's a civil engineer do? And I can tell you briefly what they do. And then you can come up with a decent question. 2 questions, actually. Okay, hang on a second, Ben. You do not have to ask these questions when the guest is here. You can if you want. That's awesome. But I am just trying to get you to think about who's coming, where they've worked, and I try and give you some of that detail. So in the submission area, I got you, Ben, just hang in there. In the submission area, you'll see John Dryden is coming. And then I kind of gave you some information about John, right? He's the transfer advisor. So maybe you have a transfer question, right? That'd be a perfect question to put in the Blackboard area, right? He also worked for the Forest Service. So maybe you have a question about that. He's a civil engineer. Maybe you have a question about that, right? He has a bachelor's degree from somewhere. Maybe you have a question about that. Okay. He's also a professional engineer. Like maybe you have a question about that. So I'm trying to give you enough information where you can generate 2 easy questions, get some easy points, as long as you post before the guest speaker comes. Does that make sense? All right. Ben, what do you got?
So about the 2 questions, do you need a discussion post on Blackboard or yes?
It's already there. Guest speaker, John Dryden, it's there. Yeah. Yep, it's there. And I think I made it worth 20 points, 10 points for each question. So, and this goes into the guest speaker field trip category, which is like 50% of your grade. Hello, you don't want to miss these. Okay. So like, talk about easy 50%. If you go on the field trip and respond to the field trip and you come for guest speakers and participate, then it's a pretty easy setup. Okay. And it's super valuable. So then we have 2 other folks coming from the city of Portland. Chris Thompson works in the water department. Both of these folks that are coming are 2-year engineering technology graduates. So I'm trying to give you a mix of 4-year folks and 2-year folks. And they're going to come talk about what they do down at the city of Portland. Okay. And then we have, I don't know who coming from the BPA, but he said he's going to send us a crowd. I'm like, oh boy, we'll never know what to get then. But he did say he was going to send electrical engineers and electrical engineering technologists, which are 4-year and 2-year potentially. Okay, so that's cool. I'm excited about all 3 of those. And we do have a field trip coming, but I don't have a date yet. We're going to go to the diamond manufacturer. So it is by far the coolest field trip I've ever taken students to. And I've taken students to a lot of places like Leatherman and Boeing and Microchip, but the place right down Stark that manufactures diamonds, that's pretty incredible. The machines are incredible, but like just the process is incredible. The chemical engineering that's going on is phenomenal. Electrical engineering going on is fantastic. And then the folks there were really, really good. And they actually kind of treated it like a class, not a field trip. Like it was so good. So yeah, it's like they make diamonds and then they make the diamonds beautiful by cutting them. And then they do really cool things with the diamond powder that they end up with after they cut the diamonds. It's amazing. And they are making diamonds the way nature makes diamonds, out of just incredibly high pressures. So they do it a lot faster than nature, and they don't have to harvest it out of the ground, right? And kill people while they're doing it. Yeah, so it's super fun. So I'm really, really hoping that comes through. All right. Good. Questions on any of that stuff? All right, all these are here, these guest speaker things. You can put your questions up anytime. Like you can think about electrical engineering and put your 2 questions up, and then you just don't have to think about it again, right? So whatever you want to do. Nobody's done it yet, but you didn't know it was there. So there you go. All right, any questions on anything else? We're gonna have a lot of things going in a lot of directions here, so you got to keep track of this somehow. All right, today, your task is you've been broke into teams, and these are your teams for the term, for the big challenge, right? The one that lasts from probably the beginning of next week all to the end. So you don't know the challenge yet, but you don't need to know the challenge to build a schedule and to set up your team. Okay, so that's maybe interesting to you that you don't need to know the challenge, but most projects have the same structure. So here is the paper that I actually have sitting in front of you, and we'll just go through it. Because there's really 3 things you need to do, and you have a week to do it. So February 1st is the deadline on this, okay? Obviously, the team should work together to get all this done. That's the point. Team formation paper. So that paper is going to identify strengths and weaknesses for each person. So obviously each person will have to do that. You can't do that for a different teammate, right? You can only do it for yourself. So collect those strengths and weaknesses, get it into the paper, try to be as specific as possible. What are possible strengths that a student has? Just toss some out. Experience in some area, right? Okay, what else? Imagination. That's maybe debatable by other people, right? I believe it. Don't get me wrong. I believe it. Maybe hard skills. Give me some hard skills. Huh? Leadership could be. Yeah, still kind of a soft skill in my mind. Yeah. So if you know Office, that's that's definitely a benefit. What about Excel? If you know Excel, yeah, that would be a benefit to the team. That would be a strength. If you know AutoCAD, that'd be a strength. Yeah. If you're a good writer, excellent strength. Yep. Yeah, so then you can just kind of keep going. There's a carpenter, there's somebody that has a shop that can actually like build some things. Somebody else might not have a shop, but they have like 4 high-powered computers and they can compute anything type of thing, So strengths and weaknesses, what's a possible weakness? Laziness, procrastinator, that one always comes up. If you admit that you are a procrastinator, that's the first step. That's really good. And we all are to some degree. We all are. Okay. So yeah, weaknesses are just that, like where you kind of fall down, right? So you're just letting your team know that you need support in that area. Excellent. Yep. No, you should work together on this. You should work together on this and share it, but each one of you will submit it. So that's going to be kind of the theme of the term. Even though you do something as a team, I'm requiring all teammates to share it. That just is going to enhance communication, I hope. And then submit, I'll submit. But if one teammate just doesn't show up, doesn't give you strengths and weaknesses, you don't know that, just note it in the paper. Like team member B did not communicate, we don't know strengths and weaknesses, right? That's legit. So yeah, just carry on. All right, then I also want you to start to build a schedule. So I want you to create a schedule. In that schedule, you should have at least the design loop process and kind of where you think that's going to lay in the term. Okay, so as a team, you're going to build schedule, should include like a research phase, a brainstorm phase, choosing a solution phase, maybe design in there before choosing a solution, prototyping, testing, all of that's got to happen no matter what the challenge is, right? Doesn't really matter. In the calendar is the delivery date of the project. So you can find that in the calendar. Good afternoon. Also in the calendar is the prototype date. That should be in your schedule. Okay. So I want teammates to be responsible for these things. So that also should be in your schedule. So that means that you're just responsible that it gets done, not that you actually have to do it. Okay. She wants to know where to sit. All right, back to the teams real quickly. Uh-oh. Where are you? There you are, team 2. Back there somewhere. Hopefully that's still working. All right. So then the way I envision this in Excel, when you build your schedule, list the names of the team people and then give them a color, right? And then when you fill in the shading for a task, if it's red, I know team person red is responsible for that. That's the simplest way to do it. If you want to do it some other way, that's fine. Make sure I understand what's going on. So, formation paper with schedule, yeah.
So can I go over 1 page?
Gonna really want you to try to keep it to 1 page, but okay. If I just leave it open-ended, some of you will produce a 10-page document. I don't want to read that. So don't do that. But yeah, if you got to bleed over, that's fine. Yep. All right. And then your team structure. What does that mean? Yeah. If you have a leader, who's the leader? And if you have a person that's in charge of documentation of meetings, or if you have a person in charge of, if you want to break your team into team roles, that's not a bad idea. Successful teams have team leaders. But if you choose a team leader, then also identify that role. Like, what's that team leader supposed to do? If they're going to make final decisions on conflicts, that should be noted, right? If we have a team of 4 that's decided to vote on things and it ends up 2-2, how do we break that vote? Right? Maybe the team leader decides, type of thing. So if you end up with that kind of structure, I just want to know about it. And you should create some kind of structure. Don't just leave it willy-nilly. And then just details like common work times that you have as a team outside of class. Communication mode and expectations. We talked about that. Like, is it going to be email? And is it going to be every 8 hours we check it? Or is it 24 hours? Or is it you're kicked off the team if you don't respond? What's the rule there, right? And then everyone's going to agree to that. So as much detail as I can get there. If there's first and secondary ways of communicating, then note that. And conflict resolution. It doesn't have to be conflict's not necessarily a bad thing. That means you have 2 solid good ideas, right? That just means there's 2 differing opinions. How are we going to resolve that? We're going to flip a coin. We're going to vote. We're going to let our team leader decide. How are we going to do it? And then, of course, I want everyone to agree to it. So that's what should be in the team formation paper. It's quite a bit there. Questions so far? It's good. So far, so good. All right, then there's the code of ethics. You're going to create a code of ethics for your team. It's essentially how you're going to behave. So I usually show my little kindergarten slide on this one, which just says be nice to people and talk nice and pick up after yourself and those kind of things. But I'll let you form it. I've encouraged you to look at the ASME code of ethics, review that, and then maybe the IEEE code of ethics, and feel free to steal them from those organizations if you want to. If you want to use one of their code of ethics, that's fine. Look at them though, review them, and make sure that the group's gonna agree to that, the team. And then the schedule, that's it. You will get the challenge next week early, probably Monday or Tuesday. I have most of it formed. I just have one area that I just don't like still. So, you know, if you're really thinking like, I need to know what the challenge is before I can build a really good schedule, that might be true. But you know, a lot, like you got to collect resources, you got to do the design, the brainstorming phase, and you got to move through that design loop. You can't get stuck. You know, when your first prototype is due, that's on the calendar. So you want to be building prototype before the first prototype's due, right? Maybe even some testing. And then you know when the final challenge is, so you know when your schedule stops. So you have a lot that you can build into that. So break those tasks down as far as you can. Yeah.
Clarify team structure. What is that?
Yeah, so a lot of times teams will have a team lead, a leader. And then you might have somebody responsible for calculations. You might have somebody responsible for graphics. You might have an individual responsible for collecting resources. You might have a person that is a note taker or somebody, responsible to remember to do something, right? Maybe you assign somebody to Blackboard just to monitor Blackboard. So when things pop up, they share it with the team, right? Or maybe not. Maybe you just have a leader and 2 engineers, right? And we just let it happen. So that's the structure I'm talking about. Yeah. Any other questions? So really, like today is just, you definitely want to share information about like when you can meet, what you can do, start to build the schedule as a team. Try to put things together and make a plan, basically. Strengths, weaknesses, that's definitely something you want to do before you leave the room. Code of ethics, all these computers are available on the edges. Excel's on everything here. You could build schedule. Everybody uploads, right? So if I'm a team member, I'm going to upload my team formation paper. I'm going to upload a schedule in Excel. Those 2 things are what's going to be there. If you do your code of ethics separate from the paper, then you would have the 3rd thing, the code of ethics. I'm looking for signatures on all. The team formation paper has a signature line, and the code of ethics has a signature line. And that's so I can, 3 weeks from now, I can say, look, you signed it. You agreed to this, right? That's really why it's there. So, and that's when I have to get involved in a team that has exploded, which I don't expect to have, not with this group. Oh, yeah. Yes, it has. Yep. Well, it's stressful. Like if your teammates are not functioning, that is stressful. If you are a student that excels, right? If you're a student that produces and you're with a student that doesn't produce, that is stressful. So some people handle that differently. Guess what? There's engineers that produce and there's engineers that don't produce. And it's disappointing, but it's true. And it just takes a while to get rid of those folks. Just being honest. You can't just fire someone, right? Once they have the job, especially if they've been there for a number of years, you can't just let them go. So it's a process to get rid of somebody, which it should be. You don't want to just be fired because you tick somebody off, right? But during that process, you have to excel if you want to excel. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Get me involved if you're having problems with teammates. I want to know what's going on. I'm your manager, so. All right, that's it. Good luck. You've got the rest of this lab to work on it.